Hi, I'm going to do a bit of debunking here about whether or not you can actually get rid of what's called the grey fog off a record. So I've heard that you can get it off using a plastic polish, typically what they use for restoring headlights on cars. The one that's often mentioned is Meguiar's Plastic X, which looks like this. So as you can see, my poor Glen Frey 12-inch single here has seen better days. This has typically come from being stored in the thick plastic bags that were common when you bought records in the 80s, and for some reason the chemicals in them just basically fog up the record. They put some clouding onto the thing and you can't just wipe it off, so it's a pretty sad state of affairs. And I've been dealing with records for a long time now, and you'd sit there and go through collections and you'd come across these records, there's something might be 100 in someone's collection, and you get to some that are stored in these thick plastic bags. I'll see if I can find one. I've probably got one here so you can see the type that I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, here's the culprits here, these type of ones. Typically they're the ones that have got the sort of serrated edges on them, and lo and behold, you open up the record and it's turned to this. So I'm going to try and see whether this Meguiar's Plastic X is going to get the stuff off. Now as you can see, this is on both sides, so I'm going to try this on one side and we'll just see how we go. Bit of elbow grease coming up. It says not to use too much on the on a cloth. So we'll just see how that's going. This is a brand new bottle of this stuff, so I sort of have to open it. Bear with me. And here's my cloth. I'm going to cut that in half, so I've got one clean bit and one bit that I can use for the cream. So it won't be long and we'll be getting underway. I've often wondered whether this works. It's, and then of course the test will be what happens when you play it. So here we go. Makes riveting viewing when the record's just sitting there doing nothing, doesn't it? Okay, so a little bit of cream on the rag here, and I'll put it around in the circular motion. And it says to rub thoroughly. And I'm going to need a bit more cream than that, I can tell you, because it just goes straight into the grooves and soaks it up. So it's looking a bit full of the cream, but I'm going to give it a good go because I've been wanting to know whether this works. Then of course you want to know whether or not you're still going to be able to play your record after. So hence I've done it on a pretty sad looking 12-inch by Glen Frey. It'd be a pretty gutsy move to be tipping this out on my original Zeppelin collection, but here we go. We'll see what's going to happen. Now, in the instructions, it doesn't say to leave it on the plastic for any length of time, but I can tell you it's soaking in a particular way. It's almost like picking up some areas and not picking up others. So there's something going on, and I'm just going to keep rubbing this in just to see what actually happens. Now, I don't want to have the stuff swimming in it. Now, by the way, this cream's not that cheap either, so you're going to have to be a bit careful about, if you decide that you're going to do some ones that are damaged, you're going to have to work out whether it's actually worth cleaning in the first place, because I think the tube of this stuff's about $25. Alright, so that's sort of now pretty well on there, but you can see there's some areas where it just doesn't want to soak in, and I wonder whether that's because there's no actual damage on the plastic there. So the next thing it says is to wipe it off now with a clean cloth. Actually, it's pretty amazing. The stuff sort of almost looks like it's drying out, and as it dries out there's a little less crap there, but yeah, my first impressions is I'm not 100% confident this is working. Or if it is working, it's working a little bit, and I don't know whether that's actually still going to be good enough to clarify that your record's in good nick. I'm probably not that confident, to be honest. Don't know about you, but it's still got a bit of that fog on it. It probably needs to be rinsed out, I would say, because I just think that that's got into the grooves. It, like, as soon as I put it on, it was getting into the grooves, and you could tell it was just soaking up. But I think the telltale is in the runouts where there's not a lot of grooves. The fog is still there, so I'm just going to give that bit. That'll probably test it for me, is to just do that bit of the runouts where there's not a lot of grooves. There's just a lot of black, sort of clear plastic, and we'll see if that makes that any better. I think this qualifies as rubbing thoroughly. I've certainly not used any other bloody record cleaner to that extent. Well, again, I'd sort of say that there's some mild improvement, but am I going to be, so that's sort of looking a bit better in there, but am I going to be doing this? I mean, the question is, if you had a collection of original 60s and 70s, early 70s, Zeppelins or some late 60s Beatles that had been stuck in these plastic sleeves, and you had them all covered in the grey fog, you're going to rip out this stuff and just start blasting away on them. And I think my answer here would have to be probably not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video. I'm now going to go and rinse this in just a tub of mildly warm soapy water, and just see whether that takes any of the excess cream away. But I'd have to say, if I'm debunking this myth of cleaning records, I reckon this is a no for me. Back soon. So back again. I've had a nice clean of this in some warm water and dried it off, and I have to say, it might be slightly better, but if I was in a store looking to buy a record and I opened it and it had this on it, I'd be putting it straight back. In fact, I'd be surprised if they were selling it. So the short answer to my test about whether the Meguiar's Plastic X is going to clean the grey fog off a record is, unfortunately, I think it's a no. I reckon it's probably made about 5% impact, and that just ain't enough to fool anyone. So, and let alone what damage it's doing to the record itself. So that's it. Job done. Not going to work.